Hi, welcome to the Light of Deception. We're into segment 3 of our searching through what does it mean to be an automatic or getting into automatic writing. What is automatic writing? Automatic writing, also known as, and this is an interesting one, psychography, is writing that is produced by a spiritual, supernatural, or subconscious force rather than by the conscious intentions of the writing themselves. It is an ancient occult practice. Now, what we talked about is, so we broke that down in the first segment. We broke down what that means in spiritualism, what it means in automaticisms, what it means overall is just a definition, and how it has come into the Christian churches. So we're looking at what does it mean to practice the presence of God? What is being still instead of being still and knowing that I am God? Meditation practices within the Christian churches, mysticism, ancient Gnosticism, contemplative prayer, breath prayer, centering prayer, spiritual formation, and all these practices, techniques, and methods that are in today's churches. How is that any different than learning to be a channeler, meditating in the occult world, automatic writing techniques in the occult world, and why is there Christian terminology to practice the presence of God? Then you start visualizing being in the presence of God, and then you start automatic writing. Instead of writing your prayers down, now you're hearing directly from God. Now, we did talk about Brother Lawrence, how he wrote that book as a monk, right? Brother Lawrence is one of the ones that spent his life as a monk and took his cues from Teresa of Avila. And he was a dancing violently like a madman when he would forget to tap into the present, or when something distracted him from the presence of God. And Teresa of Avila also was really tapped into Kabbalah, which is ancient, it's Jewish mysticism, and what that did to her, and how she led Brother Lawrence down this track as a person that would be showing him how to do these things. She had a book called Christian Mystics, so she was into mysticism herself. So we'll be moving away from Brother Lawrence. We're going to be talking about Jesus Calling, the devotional Jesus Calling by Sarah Young. Now, where did Sarah Young get her influences from is what we want to think about now. So here we go. Sarah Young also stated in her introduction to Jesus Calling, a life-changing verse has been, "Be still and know that I am God." Altered readings of "Be still and relax, let go and cease striving." This is an enticing invitation from God to lay down our cares and seek His presence. I believe that God yearns for these quiet moments with us even more than we do. This practice of listening to God has increased my intimacy with Him more than any other spiritual discipline. So I want to share some of the messages I have received. So she's hearing right from Jesus. That's why it's called Jesus Calling. Then now there's a big problem though, because from her books, her devotional came out 10 years ago, and the one that you see today, if it's really coming from Jesus, like an inspired word from Jesus, it should be infallible, but she has to change it. She's getting the people in scripture wrong. She had to take out some meditation because she was talking about how she became involved with this kind of, she went to a retreat and was walking around in the forest and meditating and these kind of things, and so it was based on meditation practices. Now they start coming out of her devotional. The changes are made when she's wrong with scripture, and the people that she's quoting in scripture that were the wrong name, she's changed those things without telling anybody. So you take one of the original copies and look at what she has, like the 10th edition, and see how much change that you see in that devotional. Or you can look at Warren B. Smith's material. He has another book out called Another Jesus Calling. So that tells you all the errors that he found in her original print. Okay, this enticing invitation does not come from God. Her interpretation misses the real meaning of the verse and is actually more consistent with the New Age twisting of this verse. God definitely meets us in our prayer time as well as when we think on Scripture. So you're fully thinking on scripture. But Psalms 46:10 is not an invitation to be still and listen for God's voice. Rather, God is calling Israel into an attitude of quiet faith and rest, which his people will trust that no matter how perilous the times, he is working out his plans among nations. Everybody is to literally be still, know he is God, and know that he will be exalted among the nation and in the earth. Sarah Young followed up her erroneous teaching of Psalms 46:10 by stating that God yearns for these quiet moments with us even more than we do. This is reminiscent of the "I need you more than you need me" statement that was uttered by the Jesus and God calling. Nothing in Scripture substantiates either one of these statements, and there is nothing in Scripture about being still and sitting with pen in hand, waiting to hear from God while practicing the presence and doing contemplative prayer. There's where we're getting messed up. So we're taking these ancient, even if they are in the church, Gnosticism and like an ancient knowledge, Desert Father practices, and occult practices, which is the root of it, and bringing it into this visualization, going within mantra, emptying the mind, and meditating on hearing from God, or facing off with God, face to face with God. If you were face to face with God in all his glory, you would be a dead man. Not one person has ever seen God face to face in all his glory. Even Moses himself, he was hovering over the mountain, and only Noah was able to go up and get the 10 Commandments, right? And he had to actually cover his face. When he came down, he did ask to see him. What did he say to him? "I'll pass by you." And what was it? At the back of him, because it was in his glory, it would have killed Moses too. So, and then you notice that everybody else, the animals, even if they came next to the mountain, would be killed, right? And then the people were afraid. A lot of people think that they can practice the presence of God. For one, in just visualizing what God would look like. God is spirit. How can we ever vastly imagine how grand and great and majestic? I mean, I can't even place my head around it, and people are seeing like old Santa Clauses and the Jesus with the lamb slain over his shoulder and with holding up the peace sign, and their imagination will lead you astray, definitely, because you cannot imagine the creator of the universe, and he's a spirit. Here we go. Biblical meditation. This is great. Biblical meditation is different. We are to meditate, think on his words. So this is kind of reiterating his perspectives, his laws, his attributes, his statutes, his testimonies, and his works. Mine eyes prevent the night watches, that might meditate in thy word. Psalm 119. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law both meditate day and night. Psalms 1:2. I have more understanding than all my teachers, for thou testimonies are my meditation. Psalms 119:99. I remember the day of old. I meditated on all thy works. I muse on the work of thy hands. Psalm 143:5. So it is pretty clear that the meditation is fully engaged in Scripture. Now, Jesus calling, Sarah Young was inspired by the God calling devotional. That's another major red flag for Sarah Young, positive acknowledgement of the book God Calling. Writing about two women who authored this work, Young states, these women practice waiting quietly in the presence, pencil and paper in hand, recording the messages they received from him. Young's fondness for this book and use of it is inspiration for her communication mode with God is deeply disconcerting. When one examines the history, methods, and content of this treasure, I have read God Calling and found it to be more closely related to New Thought than to a biblical worldview. New Thought was and is a move claiming to be Christian but also denying the essentials of the historic Christian faith. New Thought was also often paired with spiritualist beliefs that contend with the dead was regarded as a path to spiritual understanding. Do you see the connection? It's coming together, right? From the occult, automatic writing, and to the people saying they're hearing from God or Jesus, it's the same practices. Terms related to New Thought and spiritualism are seen in God Calling entries for, but not limited to, February 27th, March 10th and 13th, June 19th, June 29th, June 18th, and November 17th, and include terms as material manifestation, spiritual life, spirit life, spirit communication, spirit kingdom, the material planes, spirit sounds, spirit understanding, and spirit word. The language indicates a Gnostic-based spirit material and spirit body duality. Even taking into account when this book was written, these terms are not Christian and never have been. At least one blatant spiritualist reading is found. See, that's where they're getting it from. So the two worlds are colliding here. Now, all the stuff I'm reading from, all the definitions, all the material that is offered here that I'm reading to you will be in the description. You will find it there at the bottom. It says, okay, how often mortals rush to earthly friends who can serve them in some limited way, when the friend who are freed from this limitations of humanity can serve them so much better, understanding better, protect better, plan better, and even plead better in their cases with me. The friend freed from the limitations of humanity are the dead friends. This piercing glint of spiritualism is further confirmation of New Thought influences, since the two were so intertwined at the time. So Jesus calling, God calling. Think about the original definition of automatic writing, spiritualism, automaticism. Now I'll give you those breakdowns. As I said, they'll be available to you. So be very, very careful when somebody says that they're hearing directly from Jesus or God. So actually it's almost in like, it's just going God to pen. God to pen, just like it would be in occult practices. It would be the dead person to, pen to paper, the dead person, pen to paper. So you're just kind of the outlet of automatic writing. Automatic writing is also just a writing, and then all of a sudden it's unconscious. You just stop. So that's what they're in there. If there's errors, and they're tapping into spiritualists and occult practices to get here, meditation practices, and using scripture to be still and learn how to meditation. How incredibly scary is that? Because they're saying it's Jesus, but it's another Jesus calling, isn't it? I hope everything that you find on the light of deception will help you stay out of the false light of deception. Until next time, we're going to wrap this up with looking at biblical scripture that talks about the true presence of God, the one that you find in scripture. Thank you. Remember to press like and subscribe to this channel. Thank you.